Hello and welcome back to the channel. In this video I'll be sharing with you how to cut and sew this stylish gown with ruffles. So if this is something you like, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button. Let's dive right into today's video. So to start, here is my pattern and I've gone ahead to cut it out. I added half inch all the way around, but the only part I didn't add half inch is at the sides of the pattern. So I'll go ahead and unpin it, and I'm going to be joining it with half inch in front because I added half inch for joining allowance. So here is the lining of the dress. I'll also join it with half inch, and moving over, here is our back pattern. So initially when I was cutting this, I said I wasn't going to add lining to it, but because of the overlap I'm going to add lining. So I added the half inch in front of the zipper, and at the sides of the skirt, we went up when we were drafting it, and I didn't do that for the back, so I went ahead to also cut or go up by half inch by the side. So now I'm going to go ahead to iron this, and I'll be using my lining to turn this to the right side. So here's my lining. All I'm going to do is to go ahead to place this on it, and I'm going to be stitching on it this way from that part to the lower part and to the sides, and I'll just go ahead and repeat the same thing at the other side of the pattern. So after I'm done doing this, I'll head over to the front pattern, and I added half inch. Going up here, I added 1 inch or at the upper part because I'm going to turn it up with half inch and use the remaining half inch to sew it as an overlap. So I went ahead to place my lining on it, and I'll be stitching it round with half inch. After that, the next step is to turn the lining with the main fabric. So here it is. I've gone ahead to iron it and also iron gum stay on the lining. So I'll go ahead to stitch up the neckline and the sides of my pattern. Over to this side, for the lining also, I went ahead to iron the main fabric, also iron gum stay to the lining. You can go ahead and iron edge stay to your fabric also. So I'm going to go ahead to place this on it, and I'm going to stitch up the neckline, the sides and the zipper area of this dress, and I'm going to also move over to joining my dress. So this is what I have after I'm done joining. So this dress actually comes without a half cut. I actually added mine so that it's going to snatch my waist a bit when I'm shaping it. So I'm just going to go ahead to top stitch on it, and this is the back. I'll just go ahead to place this over, and I'll mark about 8 inches at the upper part for my zipper allowance, and I'm going to be stitching it down with 1 inch at the lower part of my pattern. But before doing that, I'll just go ahead to pin this down, and I'll mark, then go ahead to measure the 1 inch, and I will go ahead to join it at the lower part. So here is my pattern, and this is what I have. When I was ironing, my dress got burnt a bit, but I was lucky it did not burn the lining, all of the lining. So here is my pattern, and now I'm going to be marking the bust dart. So you can just go ahead and mark it back, or use your pattern paper as a guide, and you're going to mark it out from the front and then trace it back to the side, and also repeat the same at the other side of your pattern. So at the lower part, I will mark the center of my pattern because I just want to mark out my basic dart, and I'll mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2 from there, and I'll go ahead to draw out my dart. So just like I said, you can just use your pattern paper as a guide to know where your dart stopped, or you can just trace it out. So I'm just doing this for in case you're having difficulties marking out your side darts or your bust dart at the pattern. You can just go ahead to use your pattern paper as a guide and just connect. So I'll just go ahead and sew out my darts at the lower part and also at the side of the pattern. So moving over to this part to add my zipper and also mark my dart. I'm going to mark 1 inch first, which will serve as the zipper allowance, and from there I'll mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2, which is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5, and I'll just go ahead to measure what I have on my pattern paper, and I'll be adding half to it because I added ½ inch for joining allowance at the lower part of my pattern. Mark my dart, and I'll go ahead to stitch it up. So this is the back pattern, and this is what it looks like. And next I'll be joining this to the lower part. So just like I said, this pattern does not actually have a half cut. I added my a half cut at the waistline because I wanted it to define my waistline a bit. So I'll just go ahead and join this with ½ inch. So I'll just go ahead and bring out the front pattern. So here it is. I've gone ahead to top stitch it a bit, and now I'll be joining this to the dress. So make sure when you're joining this, your darts meet each other, and at the lower part of this skirt I'll be sewing in a dart on this point. So I'll just go ahead and join it with ½ inch. So this is my back pattern. I will just go ahead and sew in a zipper at the back, and this is what my front looks like after I'm done joining it. Now I'm going to place it, and I'm going to use the back neckline. I'll be stitching with 1 inch at the shoulder instead of half. So this is to make sure that my shoulder laps very well because of the neckline is a bit wide. So here is the sleeve of my dress. I'm just going to place this, and I will join it with ½ inch to the armhole area. So this is my pattern, and we're going to go ahead to shape it. So I'll place my tape, mark my shoulder to bust, mark my shoulder to under bust, and then my shoulder to waistline. So when you're marking this, you notice that your half length, if you joined yours, will be coming down by 1 inch a bit. So this is what I have after I'm done marking it. I'll just go ahead and insert my body measurement. So at this point I'll measure, and what I have here is 18.5, and my bust circumference is 33 divided by 2. I have 16.5. So 18.5 minus 16.5, I have ½ inch. I'll just go ahead and mark, but instead of ½ inch I came in a bit. So here I'll also mark my under bust. What I have here is 17 inches. My under bust circumference is 28 divided by 2. I have 14. 17, if taking out 14 minus 17, you have 1.5. So my under bust and my waist measurement is the same thing, and I'm just going to go ahead to connect. And from that point I'm going to slant it and take it down with ½ inch all the way to the end of the pattern. And I'm also going to repeat this at the other side of my dress. So I'll just head over to the sewing machine, and I'll stitch my pattern down. Go ahead to mark your armhole circumference at the armhole also. So now to make the ruffle on the dress, here is the first part. So I cut out the part for the sleeve, and I cut it out twice because I have 2 sleeves. So I'll go ahead and fold up the edge this way, and also fold the mouth so that I'll have a clean finishing. So this is it after I'm done folding. So if you notice, what I have here is a bit small, so I had little fabric remaining, so I just had to work with what I have. So now I'll just go ahead and sew a gather stitch on this. You can go ahead and do this on the machine, but because of time I was rushing, so I just had to use my needle and thread and gather this. So after I'm done gathering this, you're going to be having a ruffle. So for this ruffle now, I'm going to be attaching this part to the sleeve of my dress, and I'll be doing that with ½ inch. So this is after I was done gathering the entire ruffle for the sleeve. So this is what I have, and going over to the neckline. So I forgot to mention, when you're cutting out this, you have to go ahead and measure what you have around your neckline from the joining at the side, and also measure the other side. So what you have on one side, you're going to go ahead to times it by 2 or by 3 before cutting it out to create your ruffle. So I had little material remaining, so I just had to work with what I had. So this is 10 inches on fold, meaning it is 5 inches. So now I'm just going to go ahead to trace out the mouth part of this material a little, and I'm also going to trace the lower parts also. So now I'll be stitching this down with 1/2 inch, and also go ahead to repeat this on the other side. So note, one of the material is longer than the other one. So after I'm done folding up, this is what I have. So you're also going to do the same exact thing at the lower part of this dress, but this part is for the upper part of the dress. So now I'll also go ahead and sew a gather stitch on it, and I'll just drag it. And after I'm done sewing it, I'll be attaching it to the upper part of the dress. You can as well go ahead and stitch this on your sewing machine and just drag it to create a gather stitch on the dress. So after I'm done sewing the ruffle, this is what I have. Just like I said, my fabric is not really enough. So for one side of the ruffle, one side of the dress, my ruffle did not really go down. So you notice on this part, I'm starting with the part that the ruffle is smaller. I'll just go ahead and place it and stitch, and I will be pinning it down. So I'll place the ruffle inside and place the material on it, and I will pin it down. So after I was done pinning, this is what it looks like. So after that, I'll just go ahead and top stitch on the neckline neatly, closely to the upper part of my dress, and I'll also repeat the same thing on the side of this dress also. So I'll just go ahead and I will sew a gather stitch just like I did for this part, or you can just split it. So I'm just showing you there are different ways to achieve your ruffle. You can gather it or you can just split it. So this is the ruffle I have for the sleeve. I'll just go ahead to attach it with 1/2 inch this way all the way around my sleeve, and also attach the remaining part to the other sides of my sleeve. So we'll be working on the lower part of this dress much later, but you're also going to repeat the same process by attaching a ruffle around it. So after I'm done attaching this ruffle, this is what I have. As you can see, it's very neat at the front part. So you can also go ahead and top stitch it closely to hold down that 1/2 inch that will be inside the dress, or you can just go ahead to leave it that way. So this is my sleeve, and I went ahead to attach the ruffle. So the ruffle here I had here is very small because my fabric was just remaining very small.